Just how deep is the 2025 rookie class going to be? We're talking about that in today's video for you Dynasty players. It's that time of the year. It's October 11th. We're heading into week 6 of the fantasy football regular season. Honestly, we're getting close to halfway through the fantasy football regular season. You should have a good idea about your team. Are you competing? Are you rebuilding? And it's time to maybe start looking towards next year, right? And seeing what's out there and how many picks you should be grabbing. Should you be stocking up on second round picks, first round picks, even third round picks? If you had known that this past draft class was as deep as it was at this time last year, you could have gotten out ahead of everyone else and started stockpiling picks. So we're just doing a wide overlook. We're looking at mock draft database and they kind of compile a bunch of mock drafts and consensus big boards, and they show you who are the top players at each position and kind of what the consensus rankings is. Starting off with the quarterback position. Now, we're looking at basically all players that are going to go in the first or second round. Obviously, quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. First up, we have Shador Sanders. Shador Sanders is the number one quarterback according to mock draft database consensus ranking of 6th overall. Now he's up to 6. It says 7 right there. He is the QB1. You see his numbers there, over 1,600 yards passing, 3 interceptions. There's a lot of, obviously we know who Shador Sanders is because of his dad, right? We know who this guy is. We know he gets a lot of attention, a lot of buzz. The team's actually playing pretty well this year to start. They're 4-1. Now they have a test this week against Kansas State, but it seems to be pretty consensus. A lot of people like Shador Sanders and potentially how he translates to the NFL game. Will be interesting to see. Will be interesting to see how the rest of the season plays out, how he tests and all of that. But Shador Sanders is looking like possibly your QB1 overall. Now, since I made these, I only started making these a couple of days ago. Things have already changed. Cam Ward has moved up to the QB2 since just from a couple of days ago. Consensus ranking, now he's up to number 8. He's up to number 8 overall as the QB2, right? You see his stats there. The guy's kind of a dual threat quarterback. I think he leads NCAA in passing yards. He has 20 touchdowns, which also I think leads NCAA, plays for Miami, by the way, and over 160 rush yards with 3 touchdowns. Remember, in college, sacks do count towards minus rushing yards in your rushing yard total. So always keep that in mind. So, he has 28 carries for 161 yards, but again, that counts sacks and minus yards. He does lead the nation in both passing and yards and touchdowns. Only 5 interceptions. He is currently leading Miami to a really good season. He's kind of the biggest riser. I think he was a late second, early third when we first did this kind of entering the season, and he's already shot up to a top 10 pick. Good size on Cam Ward. He played at Washington State, moved over to Miami, and he's kind of flourishing right now. So hopefully he's in the Heisman talk contentions. We'll be watching the rest of the season. Still a long ways to go. So hopefully he keeps it up. Next up, we have Jaylen Moro, even more of a dual threat quarterback here. Jaylen Moro for Alabama is the consensus number 9 overall. So he's moved up since I made this. So he's in the top 10 as well. QB3 behind Ward and Sanders. And Jaylen Moro, again, decent size. He's a little bit smaller than you'd like, but he's 6'2", 200. I'm sure he can put on some more weight. He is, again, a dual threat quarterback here. You see the 20 total touchdowns, including 9 rushing touchdowns, over almost 300 yards on the ground, over 1,200 yards passing with another 11 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions. He plays at Alabama, right? So he's throwing to a lot of good talent there. I forget the 17-year-old's name. That wide receiver is ridiculous. But obviously it's Alabama, right? You have a lot of talent. You have first-round offensive linemen, a first-round defense, a good head coach, wide receivers, tight ends, all that stuff. Keep that in mind. But Jaylen Moro is looking good. And for fantasy, we love the dual threat guys. Cam Ward, Jaylen Moro. Shador Sanders doesn't really run, at least in college. I think he can run more than what he's done in college, but he doesn't really do it, which I understand why. You don't want to get hurt, and he thinks he can beat you with his arm, which is fair. Next up, we have, so right now we have 3 quarterbacks projected in the top 10, guys. So those guys, early first round picks in the 2025 Dynasty rookie drafts, already looking good with potentially 3 quarterbacks and potentially a 4th, Carson Beck. Now, he has fallen a little bit since I made this, down to consensus 11th overall as the QB4. Some people are projecting him more to be kind of in the teens than anything. He leads Georgia, another really good team. Carson Beck, I think, was the QB1. Him and Shador Sanders were like, QB1, QB2, no questions heading into the college football season. Obviously, Ward and Milroe have kind of proven, that they potentially are better. We don't know yet. But he's leading Georgia. He's doing a pretty good job. He has over 1,300 yards, almost 1,400 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Not much of a runner at all. Does have 22 carries, but he's not like this dual threat kind of guy. He can move, but he's not a dual threat guy. But he has the size that you look for in quarterbacks more so than the other guys. 6'4", 215. You're starting to get to that size that people like to see with their quarterback. Obviously, the game's different. You can succeed as a 6'1" quarterback. We see it all the time. But we still like guys that are 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", 220 and things like that. That's kind of like the prototypical build for the quarterback position. There's more quarterbacks here. We have Quinn Erres is another one. He's dropped a little bit since making this as 15th overall as the QB5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now he's been hurt the last couple of games. I think he's going to be coming back. Texas is, talking about Georgia and Alabama for Milroe and Beck. Texas is maybe the best team in the nation right now. So they have a lot of talent, on that field. I think Quinn Ewers is going to be coming back. I just see this. Jordan Rogers. Quinn Ewers is the best quarterback in the entire country. It says Quinn Ewers will start in versus Oklahoma, which I believe is this week in the Red River rivalry there. But, he's played in 3 games. He's basically averaging a little about 220 yards passing and 2.5 touchdowns or so. So he was doing well. He was doing well. He can also move a little bit. He's not a statue in the pocket by any means, but he's not this dual threat guy. He's 6'3", 210. I don't know how I feel about Quinn Ewers exactly. I don't know exactly how I feel about him. I just feel like with all that talent last year, Adonai Mitchell, Jatavian Sanders, Xavier Worthy, Jonathan Brooks, guys like that. Even Jordan Whittington was there. I feel like his numbers should have been better. It's just a little bit too inconsistent for me. We'll see when he comes back, because again, he's missed the last couple of weeks. So I would like to see him, healthy and playing and kind of make my. I haven't gotten into the film yet, guys. So this is just a general overview of what the consensus experts out there making mock drafts are saying. We have a couple of 3 quarterbacks actually projected to go potentially in the second round. Garrett Newsome, hopefully I'm saying that right. Garrett Newsome here for LSU, the next LSU quarterback. By the way, we don't even know if all these guys are coming out, but these guys are all eligible. The dude is like super skinny. If what I'm seeing right is true, I see 6'2", 170. I don't think that can't be right. I'm going to double check that, but you see the numbers there: 1,650 yards there, passing, 15 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. Doesn't really do much on the ground at all. Again, is he a statue? I don't think so. Yeah, he's pretty slight build, 6'2", 200, 170 seems like way too low. College football reference, like always undershoots those. But Newsome projected to go maybe in the early second round. Obviously, he played behind Jayden Daniels. I think he only played at LSU. Yeah, played behind Jayden Daniels. Been at LSU for this is his 4th year, but again, you're stuck behind a guy like Jayden Daniels. It's going to happen. So we'll see how Newsome does. I think he currently leads the SEC in passing touchdowns, which is good to see. Jackson Dart, Mr. Jackson Dart. I want to say Jackson Dart just got hurt as well. Has been playing at Ole Miss for a while. Ole Miss kind of runs like a video game type of offense. They're going to put up numbers, absolute monster numbers. So keep that in mind. He does lead the SEC in passing yards, 2,100 passing yards, 13 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, can run the ball. Last 2 years in college, 128, 119 carries, over 600 yards in 2022. This year, he has 44 carries, 156 yards, and 3 touchdowns on the ground. Did he get hurt? I don't remember. I don't think he did. So Jackson Dart, he's going to have the numbers. He's going to have the kind of the gaudy numbers. Is he the best prospect? No, but could he go in the second round and surprise people? Yeah, I think he has the arm talent. I think he potentially has the arm talent to do it. We'll have to dive into the film a little bit, but so that means we have one more here, actually. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 quarterbacks potentially going in the first 2 rounds. I don't think that's going to happen. Usually it's easy to mock draft quarterbacks to teams, but we could potentially be seeing 4 or 5 quarterbacks in the first round again, including three or 4 in the top 10. Drew Allar is the next here from Penn State, 1,100 yards, passing, 9 touchdowns to 1 interception. He always has a very good touchdown to interception ratio. He can move a little bit. You see the 90 yards on the ground and 3 touchdowns. Only 2 interceptions last year in 390 attempts for Drew Allar, 25 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. This year, he's starting off like that, 9 touchdowns to 1 interception. So super efficient. I don't know if he quite has the arm talent that you need to be a professional quarterback, but he's just a good, solid player. He definitely has the size. 6'5", 235. I shouldn't say he doesn't have the arm talent. I think he potentially does have the arm talent. He has the size. Again, I shouldn't be making claims like that right now, but super efficient, super efficient numbers, no interceptions and things like that. So good completion percentage, over 65%, 70% this year. So that's good to see. And again, when we dive into the film a little bit more, we'll understand, how it's all going to translate to the NFL. Into the wide receivers here. The running backs here. The running backs of this class were touted as holy crap, we could have 3 or 4 first-round picks. A couple of them have been disappointing. Ashton Jani, I think it's Jani, is not one of those guys that's been disappointing. This guy is putting up absolute video game numbers. 5 games, over 1,000 yards rushing and 16 touchdowns. He's literally averaging 200 yards and 3 touchdowns a game. That's insane. That's insane. It hasn't been in 2 games. His lowest rushing yards this year is 127 total yards. And that was against Portland State. And I assume they kind of blew them out. He only had 11 carries in that game. The guy's averaging almost 11 yards per attempt. And it's not necessarily a fluke. He had over 1,300 yards, over 1,900 total yards last year and 19 touchdowns. He's on pace to smash that. He is awesome. He is the RB1 in this class, according to the experts, projected to go in the first round. Man, this guy is potentially special. I can't wait to dive into his film a little bit more. He hasn't done much on the receiving side of things. Obviously, it's when you rush for 200 yards a game, you don't really need to do much on the receiving side. Good size, 5'9", 215. Excited to see him. Is he only out? No, he's eligible this year, right? I believe he's eligible this year. He should be eligible this year. I just saw something about 2026. I don't think that's true. Quinan Judkins. He was kind of, him and Oly Gordon were kind of looked at as the top 2 running backs in this class. Quinan Judkins, good player for sure, having a solid year. Nothing like what Ashton's doing there, but 5 games, almost 500 yards. That's good. 5 touchdowns. He can catch the ball. 22 catches last year, 5 catches to start the year this year. He is sharing a bit with Trayon Henderson as well. He only has 60 carries in 5 games, right? He only has 60 carries in 5 games. So you got to keep that in mind a little bit. There's another kind of a top running back prospect on Ohio State that they're giving carries to as well. As you look at Ashton has almost 100 carries in 5 games. So he has 35 more carries than Judkins. So keep that in mind. I still like Judkins a lot. I think he could sneak into the first round, probably a second round pick, especially how running backs are valued, but really good size, good speed, kind of has it all in my opinion. So Judkins, I'm excited to see kind of how he finishes out the season. The RB3, according to the experts, is Omario Hampton, projected to go early to mid second round as well. Really good numbers, as you can see, over 750 rushing yards, 16 catches, 123 receiving yards, 7 total touchdowns. Again, this guy's not a fluke either. This guy had over 1,700 total yards and 16 touchdowns last year. It's good to see him a little bit more involved in the passing game. Now, this is actually in 5 games. I know it says, 6 games. I know it says 5 games there. He actually is leading the nation in attempts. Now, he does have one more game. They haven't had their bye week, right? So he does have kind of one more game over the others. But Omario Hampton, RB3, I think he could be an early to mid second round pick. Another player, this running back class is good. Maybe it's not as good as we initially thought heading into the year, just because a couple guys have maybe not lived up to it, but there's still some really good players in this running back class, right? So Oly Gordon is up next. Now, again, Oly Gordon was my number one guy. He was my number one guy heading into the year. Things just haven't quite clicked with him. For whatever reason, I still really like Oly Gordon a lot. And I still think if he can kind of turn things around, I don't know if teams are just focusing in on him. I haven't watched a lot of Oklahoma State. I watched a couple games. I don't know if it's just like everyone knows, Oly Gordon is the man and they need to shut him down. We're talking about last year. This guy had over 2,000 total yards and 22 touchdowns, 39 catches. He can catch the ball. He can run the ball. He has good size. He can kind of do it all. I think he has good speed as well. And it's just not clicking this year for whatever reason. So he's fallen a little bit in like the consensus rankings. So a little bit concerning. We like to see guys take, either maintain where they're at or take the next step. We don't like to see them regress. That's kind of why like Braylon Allen fell into the 4th round. Now, that could be a mistake and we could get good value for him, but I still believe in Oly Gordon. I think he's a good player. Really want to see him kind of turn it around. Only averaging 3.8 yards per attempt is not great. I just think potentially, they're kind of keying in on him. So Trayon Henderson is another running back, like I told you, at Ohio State. We have 2 Ohio State running backs. He's just outside of, he's looked at as like a late 2nd, early 3rd round pick. I'm surprised he came back to college, especially with Judkins coming. But, they're kind of using them both. Trayon Henderson has 42 carries. Judkins has 60, so they're using them both. But you look at the numbers, the raw numbers. Oh, okay, 5 games, 330 yards, 6 catches. But you keep that in mind that he's basically, not on the field as much as Judkins or splitting with Judkins. The guy's only getting 8 carries a game on average, 42 carries in 5 games. He's averaging 8 yards a carry, which leads the Big Ten. So Trayon Henderson, again, still like the guy. I'm surprised he came back, especially with Judkins there. But it could be like a Roshan Bijan thing where, Roshan still got drafted in the 3rd round and hasn't lived up to it, but is going to get the chance to show his ability. Just because there's 2 running backs on a team does not mean, that the second running back can't be drafted highly. Into the wide receivers, Tet McMillan is kind of separated himself a little bit from Luther Burden, the wide receiver 2. Both these guys were kind of like, who's number 1? Is it Burden? Is it Tet McMillan? Tet McMillan, I think, has separated himself a little bit. You see his 5 games there. He has 664 yards and 4 touchdowns. He had an absolute monster week 1 against New Mexico, over 300 yards. Didn't do much against Northern Arizona. Didn't do a whole lot against Utah. But he's had 3 huge games. 300 yards in week 1 is insane. 140 in week 3. And then last week, against Texas Tech, he had over 160 yards. Tet McMillan, I'm excited to see. I think he's kind of separated himself from Luther Burden, but this is going to go back and forth all year, in my opinion, right? This is going to go back and forth all year long at the testing. But Tet McMillan has the size. He's at 6'5", 212. Teams still like those big receivers. Tet McMillan has that big size. A little bit of a down year, especially considering what he did in week 1, but there's still a lot of time. He can still turn things around. Luther Burden is up next. This is another player where like things just aren't 100% clicking with him and his quarterback at Mizzou. I don't know why exactly. I'm not 100% sure what's going on. I did watch a couple of games here, and that's what I heard. It was like, it's not clicking type of thing. And for whatever reason, you see the numbers there, 339 yards. You expect a little bit more. People were talking about this guy potentially winning the Heisman, and that's obviously not going to happen. 26 catches, 339 yards, 4 touchdowns. He does have 3 carries. Still think he's going to be a top 15 pick in the draft. Still think he has special talent, and he still could be the best wide receiver in this draft class. And Emeka Abuka is up next, the Ohio State wide receiver who's kind of having a good bounce back year. Abuka, he dealt with injuries last year and things like that. Obviously Marvin Harrison Jr. was there. He's always had a crowded kind of receiving room in there, but he's having a good year. Five games, 30 catches, 433 yards, 5 touchdowns. Still projected to be a first-round pick, kind of in the late teens to early 20s, I believe is where he's going to go. I like Emeka Abuka a lot. I do think he is probably the wide receiver 3 as of now in this draft class. Good size, 6'1", 6'2", 205. That's kind of like ideal wide receiver size these days. Excited to see Emeka Abuka and him continuing his reign here. 3 more wide receivers. Isaiah Bond has shot up a lot. I think when we first did this, Isaiah Bond was his 2nd-round pick. Isaiah Bond transferring over to Texas, so he's part of that stacked Texas team. And he has good numbers, man. 20 catches, 364 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 carries, 51 yards and a touchdown. So he's a big play type of receiver. He's smaller. He's very fast. He's 5'11", 180. So he's one of those small, fast guys. Can get down the field. I believe. Is he leading? No, I thought he was leading the nation in yards per catch. He's not, but he's averaging over 18 yards per reception. Like that just shows you the type of player he is. He's explosive. A little bit of that Xavier Worthy build. If there's anyone that's going to beat Xavier Worthy's 40-yard time, I think it's going to be Bond. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm just saying, like, that's my money on it. He's a good receiver, and he's snuck into potentially in the late first round, just like Worthy did. So excited to see Bond, and hopefully back with Quinn Erres here soon. Trey Harris, the wide receiver 5 in this class as of now. Again, he's over there, right? He's putting up some of those video game numbers there at Ole Miss with Jackson Dart. He's his main guy, 52 catches, 885 yards, and 5 touchdowns. The 885 yards leads the nation right now. 52 catches leads the SEC. Averaging over 17 yards per reception. Looking really good, man. Trey Harris looking really, really good. And I mean, again, kind of same build, 6'2", 205. He's an exciting player. And he's going to have ridiculous numbers. So I'm excited to kind of get into the film here. And then actually 2 more guys. We have Evan Stewart. Transferred to Oregon. I thought he was going to put up huge numbers. It hasn't really clicked for him. I'm not 100% sure why. He's still considered the wide receiver 6 in this draft class. It's just not clicking for him. Oregon put up ridiculous numbers last year, but we've really only seen one good game from Evan Stewart, 5 for 112. So literally like 33% of his catches, half his touchdowns, and 70% of his yards came in one game. And then he's just kind of invisible the other games. Not great to see. We'll have to get into the film a little bit and see what's going on here. Not excited to see. He's a smaller receiver. There were some people that were skeptical, when he came over from Texas A&M. He's never had really good numbers in college, just solid numbers. So it'll be interesting to see how he's doing. And then we have, and I've messed up the pronunciation here. I'm looking at the pronunciation guide. I see Elric Iman. Hopefully I'm saying that right. The Stanford Cardinal. And he's kind of been projected to go around here for a while now, the 2nd-round pick. Only 24 catches and 317 yards. But if I am correct, and I'm just double checking this, I don't think Stanford has this amazing. They have 900 yards total passing. So we're talking about Elric here is putting up a third of his team's receiving yards. almost a third of their passing touchdowns. So you got to look at the offense and the percentage. A lot of people like him. They like his size and his build. They think he can develop a little bit, into a good wide receiver. He may be a little bit of a project, but, he's 6'2", 210. I think a lot of people think he, kind of like a Michael Wilson, can develop into a really good receiver. To finish up, guys, we have 3 tight ends. Really, we have 1 tight end to talk about. It's Colston Loveland from Michigan. He's been projected to go in the first round all year for a while now. He is the tight end of this class. So he's going to be a first-round pick. You see the numbers there. For Loveland, 29 catches, 269 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And I know for a fact Michigan does not pass the ball very much, even less so this year. So just looking at their passing yards, they have 690 total passing yards. So he's literally a third of their passing yards and a third of their touchdowns. And almost 25% of their completions. The guy is ridiculous. He's like 30% of Michigan's passing offense. So he's going to be a first-round pick. Excited to see where he goes. Hopefully he lands on a good team. The 2 other tight ends that could sneak into the second round, Tyler Warren from Penn State here. Tyler Warren, you see the numbers there, 23 catches, 289 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's a big boy, 6'6", 250. I like that he has 4 carries for 34 yards. He's athletic. It just shows you his athleticism a little bit. So I like to see stuff like that. It makes me excited. And just for reference, again, like Penn State, they're not this amazing passing team either. 1,200 total yards passing. So he's putting up, again, 25% of that. That's good to see. 4 total touchdowns for him. I think he could be a solid second-round pick here. And then Luke Lockey, I think I'm saying it right, another Iowa tight end here. So, 5 games, 17 catches, 136 yards. Iowa's another one of those teams that doesn't run much. So what we're looking at, guys, is we're potentially looking at 3 or 4 quarterbacks in the first round. We're probably looking at 3 or 4 wide receivers in the first round. We're probably looking at a running back. So we're looking at potentially, and then a tight end. We're looking at potentially 10 first-round picks for our fantasy positions, quarterbacks, running backs, wide receiver, tight ends, maybe even a little bit higher, and a good mix. And potentially looking at, there's a good chance that 5 of the top 10 picks in the NFL draft are quarterbacks and wide receivers. So it's exciting stuff. Start to stockpile those picks. We will check back in on this in about a month, about 3 weeks. We'll check back in and see how this is going, what's changed. Appreciate you all. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Help us get to 700 subscribers by the end of October. Catch you guys all in the next video.